Hey everybody, I'm Natalie Bencivenga, host of 5 Minutes With, and this week I am so honored and thrilled to have two very special guests, Stephen Santa and Rebecca Covert, and they are the co-founders of Jumping Jack Theater. This isn't your average theater, however. This one is extremely special, and Stephen, Rebecca, thank you so much for both being here to talk about it.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's always a little awkward when there's more than one person on the screen. It's like, who's going to jump in first?
Yeah, exactly.
You handled it well. So, Stephen, can you tell a little bit about Jumping Jack Theater and really what sets it apart from other theatrical experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Jumping Jack Theater is a Pittsburgh-based theater company that focuses on creating theatrical experiences for youth audiences on the autism spectrum and others with sensory sensitivities. And use the word adventure and experience instead of saying we put on plays or shows, because what we're doing is a little different than that. We're bridging the gap between the audience and the performers by creating unique one-on-one or small group experiences that are really exciting and very unique and different than your typical theater going adventure or play.
Yeah, it honestly sounds a little bit more like a VIP experience, that one-on-one idea. And I love that. And Rebecca, where did this idea of Jumping Jack Theater become inspired from?
Well, I have a background in education, and I worked many years as a teaching artist in music and theater.
Mhm.
And when my own son, Jack, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, he's now 12, I started kind of refocusing what I did in the classroom in special ed environments instead. So I started doing more of that and started creating family programming for families raising children with autism and other sensory sensibilities. And I started seeing a change in theater where they're really addressing how to make theater more friendly for families with children like Jack and other folks on the autism spectrum. And I reached out to Steve and I said, I think this is a wonderful marriage for what you're interested in and what I'm interested in. And can we find a way to build this into something special for the Pittsburgh autism community? And Steve, I don't know if you want to give a little background on where you came from that perspective.
Yeah, so I'm primarily a theater director, and but I've also, as we all artists do, wear many hats. For I think it's almost around 20 years, I've worked in the summers for a camp for kids with disabilities. And so when Rebecca did come to me and said, she was, wanted to be able to have somewhere to take Jack where not only Jack felt comfortable and safe, but the whole family did, to experience art, it really made sense for me taking my two kind of passions with working with kids with disabilities in theater and merging them together. And it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, like, this is what I've been searching for, and this is what I should be doing.
Oh, yeah, I think that makes total sense. And kudos to both of you for letting those stars align and come together in this way. So, what can people experience and what can they expect when they go to one of these, not plays, but sort of adventures?
Well, it's kind of changed over the years. As we've grown, we've learned so much. Our first show was called The Light Princess, and it was a collaboration with the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust.
Mhm.
And it was more of a more typical theatrical experience where we had a larger audience of around 60 people in the audience, but there were interactive moments throughout the show. And then our second show became a touring experience that toured to elementary schools, autism support classrooms, theater festivals, community events. And that was a smaller experience with around 25 kids or less. And where we're headed towards now is a more one-on-one show experience that I think we'll talk about in a little bit, which is, so Rebecca, is there anything you want to kind of add to that?
Yeah, well, one thing to note is that we developed both of those shows through education residencies. One long-term residency that was 60 days at the Cannon McMillan School District. So we would try out ideas and adventures, experiences, sensory adventures, or try out communication supports or ways for the students to really engage in the experience themselves. So we are really taking that knowledge from the teachers, from the students, and what we were documenting and observing, and applying it to how we were really shaping and molding these shows specifically for our audience.
What were some of the sort of surprises that you found from your audience members? Tell me like a little anecdote or something that you weren't really expecting the kids to do when they were engaging with this process.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, thank you. You
So
know,
polite, I love it.
one of the things we say is that there's a no shushing policy at our shows, which means we really want our audience to experience the show in any way that they feel comfortable.
Right.
With whether that means sitting down quietly and watching, or standing in the back of the room from afar and watching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one quick story: we had a young woman at a school with our touring show who really loved the music in the show, and she wanted to know where it was coming from. And we have a speaker that's placed behind our set, and she actually got up out of her seat and went back and picked up the speaker and brought it back with her and sat down with it. And we were okay with that. And again, if you're going to a typical theater experience, that's not going to be something that's acceptable. But as long as our audience is staying safe, we want them to experience it the best they can. In the same show, the beginning of that show, our main character was just sitting on a carpet playing with her favorite toys. There was an audience member who wanted to get a closer look at those toys. So he came up and sat right next to her on the carpet and was looking very closely at that toys. And again, if that's the way that they wanted to experience it, we were totally cool with that. And of course, that takes some training for our actors and things that we work on in rehearsal. But it also takes some training for the audience members as well, because, you know, when we go to a school and a student gets up and does that, the first thing the teacher wants to do is go and grab them and say, no, sit down. This is a play. You have to sit down and be quiet and clap when you're supposed to. And you know, so we find that we're also doing a lot of teaching because this is a new kind of world of theater that people are navigating that is super exciting to be able to make something as accessible as possible for everyone.
So when we're talking about that accessibility, and then COVID happened, right? And this idea of, you know, having kids really interacting with the actors, we can't do that right now. So how have you had to adapt this as you move forward into the future?
It's definitely a challenge for us because there is no fourth wall for our shows. The audience is interacting directly with the actors. But we are very excited about our next project because it is a direct response to COVID. We've actually purchased a covered trailer. It's 5 feet by 10 feet. It's a tiny little trailer that we can basically take anywhere. And we're going to be creating a theatrical experience that happens within this trailer for one audience member and their caregiver and one actor at a time. And the goal is to be able to take this show anywhere. We'll take it to your school. We'll bring it to your front yard. And, you know, our audience members can just come out of their house and join us for this one-on-one theatrical experience that will kind of hopefully alleviate some of the fears of going to a theater event during COVID.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this 5 minutes with, and I wish we had a lot longer because I love learning about this and chatting with you both. Rebecca, I just wanted to ask you, how has this experience impacted Jack, you know, Jack's friends, and really your relationship with your son? How are you sort of seeing theater in a new way because of him?
Well, it's as a parent, first of all, to know and to observe other parents watching their children engage with a performance like this, the joy, the freedom, and the acceptance. It's so emotional for me because there have been so many experiences where we've tried to take Jack to several performances and we've had to leave. It was too overwhelming, the stares that you get, and to have an environment and to be part of a project that creates an environment that allows our kids to just be who they are and to experience it how they were meant to experience it and see that joy. that's so meaningful for me and for my son. And just having him a part of it. What was great is Jumping Jack, actually, we moved to Central PA, back to where we grew up, my husband and I. So Steve and his partner Claire Sabatine have kind of taken the torch and run with Jumping Jack since we've left 3 years ago, and I'm so incredibly proud of them. But to see them come to Jack's school in Central PA, they worked with his class, and to see them being able to travel and work with audiences around the state has been just so inspiring, and I'm just so incredibly proud of them.
That's beautiful. Well, I am so proud of both of you. This is awesome what you're doing to build equity in our communities. So thank you so much, Stephen and Rebecca, for spending 5 minutes with me. Thank you.
Thank you.